The November rain in Chicago was a cold, relentless thing, drumming a nervous rhythm against the glass of my apartment window. It was a perfect match for the frantic beat of my heart as my thumbs flew across my phone's screen. The pale light cast my reflection back at me, highlighting the dark smudges of exhaustion beneath my eyes, a souvenir from 3 nights spent beside my daughter's bed. Mia, my 4-year-old, was finally asleep in the next room, her fever having at last surrendered. I sank deeper into the lumpy cushions of my thrift store sofa, the familiar scent of children's shampoo and cheap laundry detergent a comforting, if weary, hug. I just need a little more time, I pleaded silently, composing a text to Leo, my ex and Mia's spectacularly unreliable father. He was 3 months behind on support payments and had become a ghost the moment the rent was due. I had to remind him of our daughter's existence, of the fact that we were slowly going under. The ancient radiator in the corner hissed and clanged, putting up a valiant but failing struggle against the autumn chill that crept through the paper-thin walls of our third-floor walk-up. Mia needs her prescription filled. Rent is due tomorrow. You promised the $1,500 this week. Please answer me. I pressed send, my desperation immediately pushing me to type another message, a reckless gamble. I know you got paid for that Moretti job. Don't force me to go to them. It was a hollow threat. I knew nothing about Leo's work, only the name he'd dropped in our last shouting match, swearing he was about to hit a major payday working for some people named Moretti. It was just another in a long line of fantasies from a man who built his life on them. I put the phone down, pressing the heels of my hands into my eyes to ward off the headache that had become my constant companion. The lamp on the end table flickered, a perfect metaphor for my life. Just then, my phone vibrated with an unexpected reply. My heart hammered as I grabbed for it, nearly fumbling it into the couch cushions. Instead of Leo's typical litany of excuses, 2 words glowed on the screen that turned my blood to ice. Who's this? It was from a different number. Not Leo's. In my sleep-deprived haze, I must have selected the wrong contact. Someone whose number I didn't even recognize. I typed a quick apology. So sorry. Wrong number. Disregard. The reply was instantaneous. What Moretti job? My stomach twisted into a knot. I should have ignored it, but my exhaustion had eroded all my common sense. I typed nothing. My ex works for someone by that name. It was a mistake. Your name. Now. The command was so stark it made my fingers freeze over the keyboard. A cold feeling, a sense of real danger, washed over me. I paused, then typed back. This is just a misunderstanding. I'm sorry I bothered you. 3 dots appeared, vanished, then reappeared. Address. It wasn't a question. My hands started to shake, and I placed the phone screen down on the cushion beside me. Outside, the rain grew heavier, lashing against the windows with a new, frantic energy. I pulled my worn cardigan tighter and went to check on Mia, needing to hear the steady sound of her breathing. Her fever was gone, a small mercy in a sea of troubles. I smoothed the damp hair from her forehead and dimmed her little rocket ship nightlight, which cast a soft blue glow over her sleeping face. Back in the living room, my phone began to buzz insistently, over and over. I approached it as if it were a venomous snake, reading the messages as they lit up the screen. I already know who you are, Clara Rossi. My own name stared back at me. I hadn't told him my name. 44S, Ashland Avenue, apartment 3B. My address. The air hitched in my throat. Your daughter's fever has broken. The phone slipped from my suddenly numb fingers, clattering onto the hardwood floor. How could this person possibly know about Mia? About her being sick? I snatched it up, my hands trembling so violently I could barely hold it steady. My mind spun, searching for a logical explanation. Was this some cruel prank by Leo? Had I unknowingly stumbled into something far more serious than my ex's usual small-time hustles? He was always cagey about his work, but I'd always assumed it was because he was ashamed of his failures, not because he was involved in something truly dangerous. I crept to the window and peered through the blinds, half expecting to see a figure watching from the street below. The wet asphalt reflected the orange glow of the streetlights, illuminating an empty block, save for the usual parked cars. I was being paranoid. I had to be. Then I saw it. A black Cadillac Escalade, its paint gleaming under the rain, pulled silently to the curb directly in front of my building. Its headlights cut out, but the engine kept running, its exhaust a pale ghost in the chilly air. As I watched, mesmerized by a growing dread, a second identical SUV parked behind the first. A third appeared from the opposite direction. Within minutes, my building was bracketed by 5 of these imposing black vehicles, forming a silent, menacing perimeter. My phone buzzed in my hand. Coming up. It wasn't a question or a request. It was a statement of fact. I stumbled back from the window, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. The building's front buzzer had been broken for months, but I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that it wouldn't make a difference. The kind of person who could find my name, my address, and my daughter's medical status from a single mistaken text would not be deterred by a faulty lock. I thought about calling 911, but what would I say? That I'd texted someone by mistake and now I was scared? That expensive cars were parked legally on a public street? The threat felt immense, but it existed only in my mind and on my phone screen. Heavy, unhurried footsteps began to ascend. The stairwell. I stared at my apartment door, at its flimsy chain and cheap deadbolt. It felt as useful as a paper screen. The footsteps halted directly outside my door. A silence stretched, thick and suffocating. No one knocked. Instead, my phone lit up again. Open the door, Clara. I clutched the phone to my chest and backed away, my eyes darting toward Mia's room. Should I wake her? Hide her? But where? We were on the 3rd floor with no fire escape, no other way out. Then came a soft, controlled rap on the door. It was so measured that it was more terrifying than a pounding fist would have been. My phone buzzed again. I'm not here to harm you or Mia. We need to discuss Leo. Leo. No one ever called him Leo. It was always Mike or some other casual nickname. Against every instinct screaming at me to run, I found myself moving toward the door. Some primal survival instinct had taken over, telling me that whatever was on the other side was not something I could hide from. It was better to face it. My hand trembled as it hovered over the deadbolt. One turn, and my life would irrevocably change. One turn, and I would meet the nightmare Leo had dragged us into. I opened the door. He was silhouetted by the dim hallway light, his face cast in shadow but his form clear. Broad shoulders filled a perfectly tailored suit. I saw the glint of a luxury watch and the steady, calm rhythm of his breathing. He smelled of expensive cologne, cedar, and something metallic, like the scent of power itself. Behind him, a larger man stood with his hands clasped, his eyes constantly scanning, missing nothing. The first man took a step forward, allowing the faint light from my living room to catch his features. He had sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw dusted with stubble, and eyes of such an intense, piercing blue that they seemed to see straight through me, assessing and calculating. "Clara Rossi," he said, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through my bones. It was a confirmation, not a question. "I think it's time we talked about your association with Leo Vance." I grabbed the doorframe to steady myself, my knees suddenly weak. "Who are you?" His lips curved into something far too predatory to be called a smile. "My name is Dante Moretti, and your ex-boyfriend has stolen something of great value from my family." In that instant, I knew. My desperate, angry text hadn't just gone to a wrong number. It had gone to the single worst person in all of Chicago, the man Leo had been working for, the man whose name I had so carelessly used as a threat. And now he was standing in my doorway, with a fleet of black Cadillacs outside, and men who moved with the quiet deadliness of predators, all because of one tired, mistaken text message that had just sealed our fate. My first instinct was a futile, reflexive attempt to slam the door shut. His hand shot out, palm flat against the wood, stopping it with an effortless strength. He didn't force it open, just held it, preventing my retreat. "That would be a mistake," he said, his voice quiet but firm. His gaze flicked past me, into the shabby interior of my apartment. "Your daughter is sleeping. Let's not disturb her." The sound of Mia's name on his lips was a violation that made my blood run cold. It was one thing to see her name on a screen, but to hear this dangerous man speak it, acknowledging her presence just a few feet away, was something else entirely. "I don't know anything about what Leo did," I whispered, hating the tremor in my voice. "We haven't been together for almost a year. He hardly ever sees Mia." Dante's gaze remained locked on mine, searching for any hint of a lie. "And yet, you knew enough to use my name, to threaten him with it." "It was just a name he mentioned once," I stammered, my voice breaking. "He said he was doing a job for someone important. I was desperate. He owes me money for our child. The rent is due." I was bluffing. Something in his expression shifted. It wasn't softness, but a kind of recalibration. The large man behind him took a call, his voice a low murmur I couldn't decipher. "May I come in?" Dante asked, though it was phrased less like a question and more like an inevitability. "Unless you'd rather we have this discussion for your neighbors to hear." As if on cue, a door down the hall creaked open. Mrs. Gable, the retired nurse who sometimes watched Mia for me, peered out, her eyes widening at the sight of two imposing men at my door. "Everything okay, Clara, dear?" she asked, her voice wavering but resolute. Dante turned slightly, offering her a smile that completely transformed his face. He was suddenly disarming, charming. "Just dropping off some paperwork from the office for Clara. So sorry to disturb you this late, ma'am." Mrs. Gable hesitated, her worried eyes shifting between us. I forced a smile that felt brittle enough to shatter. "It's fine, Mrs. G. Thank you." She gave a hesitant nod before disappearing back inside her apartment, the sound of her lock clicking into place, echoing down the hall. "Office paperwork," I said flatly once we were alone again. "Is that what you're calling this?" It seemed more palatable than, "Your ex stole from me and I'm here to settle the debt," he replied, his voice low. "Now, may I come in? I assure you, both you and Mia will be much safer if you cooperate." The threat was wrapped in velvet, but it was a threat nonetheless. I stepped back, yielding the space. He entered my small apartment, and the room seemed to shrink around him, the very air compressing to make way for his presence. The bodyguard, Marco, remained outside, taking up a position beside my door. "Marco will ensure our privacy," Dante explained, noticing my glance. He took in my living room, the worn-out furniture, the basket of clean but unfolded laundry, Mia's brightly colored toys scattered on the rug, with an unreadable expression. "Tell me what Leo took," I demanded, folding my arms across my chest in a weak attempt to reclaim some semblance of control. "And tell me why you think I have anything to do with it." Dante unbuttoned his suit jacket, a casual movement that made me hyper-aware of the firearm I was certain he was carrying beneath it. He met my eyes with an unnerving directness. "Leo Vance didn't just steal money from me, Clara. He stole information. Information that could get a lot of people killed, very possibly including his own daughter." "My daughter has nothing to do with this," I snapped, my voice gaining a surprising strength from the fear coursing through me. I instinctively moved to place myself between Dante and the short hallway that led to Mia's room, a futile shield against a man who clearly commanded resources I couldn't even imagine. Dante didn't move from his spot, his presence dominating my tiny living room. I'm afraid you're mistaken. The moment Leo chose to betray my family, he involved everyone connected to him. He gestured toward the sofa. Please, sit down, Clara. This will be far more pleasant if we're both at ease. There was absolutely nothing pleasant about the situation, but I sank onto the edge of the couch anyway, my body coiled and ready to flee, even with nowhere to go. Dante didn't sit. Instead, he walked to the window, carefully peering through the blinds at the street below, where his men waited in their dark vehicles. Leo worked for me for 3 years, he began, his back still to me. Minor tasks, running numbers, making collections. He was never important enough to know the real business. He turned, and those intense blue eyes pinned me in place. Until 6 weeks ago, he was entrusted with delivering a flash drive containing highly sensitive data. And he stole it, I finished, the ugly pieces clicking together. He didn't just steal it. He made copies. He began trying to sell it to my rivals. Dante's jaw clenched. This information could unravel operations my family has spent generations building. It could lead to arrests. Or worse. I rubbed my temples, another wave of exhaustion breaking over me. That sounds exactly like something Leo would do, always chasing the quick, easy score. I looked up at him, but I swear I haven't seen him in weeks. The only contact we've had are his texts begging for more time on the support payments. Whatever he took, whatever mess he's in, I am not a part of it. In 2 fluid strides, Dante crossed the room and picked up a framed photograph from my bookshelf. It was a picture of Mia and me at Lincoln Park Zoo last summer. Mia's face a sticky mess of cotton candy, both of us laughing into the camera. His fingers traced the edge of the cheap plastic frame with an unexpected gentleness. "You have a lovely daughter," he said softly. "She has your eyes." A profound chill ran down my spine at his words, at the way he studied Mia's smiling face. "Please, don't." "I am not threatening her, Clara." He set the photo down with deliberate care. "I am explaining to you why you are already involved, whether you want to be or not. Leo has painted a target on both of your backs." "What are you talking about?" "The data he stole doesn't just compromise my organization, it compromises others who would make me look like a choir boy." He finally sat down in the armchair across from me, leaning forward, his elbows on his knees. "As we speak, there are at least 2 other syndicates hunting for him, and by extension, for anyone who might know where he is." I swallowed hard, my throat suddenly desert dry. "I told you I don't know where he is." "I believe you," he said, and his answer surprised me. "But they won't, and their methods of inquiry are not nearly as polite as mine." A hysterical laugh bubbled up from my chest. "This is polite? Surrounding my home with armed men, tracking me down, implicitly threatening my child? If I wanted to threaten you, you would be in no doubt about it," he said, his tone matter of fact, not menacing. "The cars outside are not just for intimidation. They are a security detail. And I didn't track your phone. Your ex-boyfriend gave me your number months ago. He listed you as his emergency contact." I stared at him, dumbfounded. "That's not possible." "He wouldn't. He was required to provide a family contact when he began working for me. He claimed you were on amicable terms." A corner of Dante's mouth twitched, a shadow of amusement. Apparently, that was another one of his lies. My mind reeled, struggling to absorb this new piece of information. Leo had used me, his estranged ex, as an emergency contact for a job with the Chicago mob. The sheer terrifying absurdity of it was staggering. "As for your daughter's illness," Dante continued, "you've been filling her prescriptions at the Pilsen Community Pharmacy. My family owns that building. I hugged myself, feeling stripped bare, exposed. So what is it you want from me? If you believe that I don't know where he is? I want to find him before my competition does. And you are going to help me. How? I can't even get him to answer a text about his own daughter. Because you have the one thing he might still care about, Dante said, his gaze flicking toward the hallway where Mia slept. His daughter. I shot to my feet, a surge of fury momentarily eclipsing my fear. You will not use my daughter as bait. In a single, smooth motion, Dante was on his feet as well, his height forcing me to tilt my head back to look him in the eye. I am offering you protection, Clara. For both of you. Because I promise you, if the Volkov crew finds him first, they will not hesitate to use Mia to draw him out. And their methods will be far from humane. The name Volkov hung in the air between us. Russian syndicate. I'd seen enough local news reports to know the name, and to know that his threat was not an empty one. What exactly are you proposing? I asked, hating the tremble in my voice. You and Mia will come with me. Tonight. I will move you to a secure location. From there, you will contact Leo. You will tell him you must see him, that it's an emergency, that Mia is asking for him. He won't come just for that. Then tell him whatever it takes. Dante shrugged. That you're in trouble. That Mia's condition has worsened. That you found something of his that the police might be interested in. You know him better than I do. And if I say no? His expression hardened. Then I will leave. I will take my men, and I will remove the only protection standing between you and the people who will use much less pleasant methods to get what they want from you. My eyes darted to the window, to the black SUVs still idling below. They no longer looked like a threat. They looked like a shield against something far worse. I need to think, I whispered. You have 5 minutes, Dante said, glancing at his watch. Pack what you and Mia will need for a few days, nothing more. As if on cue, a small cry came from Mia's room. Mommy. Dante's eyes met mine. Go to her, but remember, this is no longer just about Leo. This is about keeping your daughter safe. I rushed down the hall, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm. Mia was sitting up in bed, her favorite stuffed bear, Barnaby, clutched in her arms, her small forehead damp with sweat. Hey, sweetie, I murmured, sitting on the edge of her bed and stroking her hair. How are you feeling? My throat is scratchy, she said, her voice hoarse. Who are you talking to? Just a friend of Mommy's, I lied, forcing a smile. Listen, we have to go on a little trip, okay? Just for a couple of days. Her eyes grew wide. Like a vacation? Something like that. I opened her small dresser, my hands shaking as I pulled out clothes. We have to pack fast. Is Daddy coming? The hope in her small voice was a knife in my heart. After everything, she still adored him, still asked for him. Maybe, I said, the lie tasting like ash. We'll see. I helped her into jeans and a warm sweater, then packed a small backpack with a few outfits, her medication, and Barnaby the bear. The entire time, I felt like I was moving through a nightmare. This couldn't be real. I couldn't be packing my daughter's things in the middle of the night to leave with a man who was essentially holding us hostage, a man tied to whatever criminal enterprise Leo had entangled himself in. But what other choice did I have? When we came out of the bedroom, Dante was speaking quietly into his phone. He ended the call the moment he saw us, his expression softening almost imperceptibly as his eyes fell on Mia. She hid behind my leg, suddenly shy. Hello, Mia, he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. He crouched down to her level. My name is Dante. I'm going to help you and your mom for a while. Mia studied him with the unfiltered curiosity of a child. Are you a doctor? Mommy said I'm still sick. A faint smile touched his lips. No. Not a doctor, but I know some very good ones who can make sure you feel all better. She seemed to consider this, then gave a solemn nod. Okay. Can Barnaby come? Of course. Dante stood up, his gaze meeting mine over Mia's head. Do you have everything? I held up the duffel bag I'd hastily packed for myself. Enough. He nodded once, then spoke into a small earpiece I hadn't noticed before. Bring them down. Have the car ready. The bodyguard, Marco, opened the apartment door as we approached. Mia clutched my hand, her small body tense with apprehension about leaving our home in the dead of night. I couldn't blame her. Every step felt like walking deeper into a pit of quicksand. It's going to be okay, I whispered to her, though I had no idea if that was true. The hallway was silent as we made our way to the stairs, with Dante in front and Marco behind us. We were bookended, I thought with a flash of dark humor, or escorted by prison guards. Where are we going? I asked as we descended. Somewhere safe, was all Dante would say. Outside, the rain had eased to a fine mist, leaving the Chicago streets slick and gleaming. One of the Cadillac Escalades was idling directly in front of the building, its engine a low, powerful rumble. A driver held the rear door open for us. Mia balked at the sight of the huge vehicle and the stone-faced men surrounding it. Mommy, I'm scared. I crouched down to her level. It's just a big car, baby, like in the movies. We're going on an adventure, remember? She didn't look convinced, but she nodded bravely. I lifted her into the SUV and climbed in behind her, settling her on my lap. The interior was all dark leather and understated luxury, smelling of cologne and money. Dante slid in beside us, and the door closed with a heavy, final thud. Home, Johnny, he told the driver, who pulled away from the curb without a word. The other SUVs fell into formation around us like a presidential motorcade. Home? I asked, the knot of tension in my stomach tightening. My residence, Dante clarified. It's the most secure property I own. You'll be safe there until we find Leo. Mia was already starting to doze against my shoulder, the combination of her illness and the late hour pulling her back toward sleep. I envied her the temporary escape. This is kidnapping, I said softly, conscious of Mia sleeping against me. Dante's eyes flashed in the dim light of the car. This is protection. If I wanted to kidnap you, you wouldn't have been given time to pack. The cold logic of his statement silenced me. We drove in tense quiet, the only sounds Mia's soft breathing and the occasional crackle from the driver's radio. I still don't get it, I finally said. Why would Leo steal from you? He's a liar and he's selfish, but he's not a complete idiot. He had to know you'd come for him. Desperate men make foolish choices, Dante replied, his voice flat. Especially when they believe they've found a shortcut to solving all their problems. What was on that drive that's worth all this? His jaw tightened. Names, locations, financial ledgers, enough to bring down networks that took generations to build. I shifted Mia's weight on my lap. And you really think he'll just hand it over if I ask him to? No. Dante's gaze was unflinching. I think he will come running when he learns that I have you and his daughter. And then, he will have no choice but to return what belongs to me. The cold calculation in his voice was terrifying. So you are using us as bait. I prefer to think of it as leveraging my available assets, he said, his eyes dropping to Mia's sleeping form before returning to me. But yes, essentially. I turned away, watching the blurred lights of the city streak past the tinted windows. We were heading north, toward the Gold Coast, where the streets became wider and the buildings were replaced by stately mansions set back behind imposing iron gates. If anything happens to my daughter because of this, I began, my voice low and fierce. Nothing will happen to her. Dante cut me off, his tone absolute, leaving no room for argument. You have my word. The word of a mobster, I muttered under my breath. The word of a man who understands the value of family, he countered. Far more, it seems, than your ex-boyfriend ever did. Before I could form a reply, the SUV slowed, turning onto a private drive flanked by limestone pillars. A wrought iron gate swung open to admit us, closing silently behind our convoy. The driveway wound through perfectly manicured grounds, revealing a mansion of glass and stone that looked more like a modern art museum than a home. "Welcome to my home, Clara," Dante said as the car came to a smooth stop. "For the time being, it is yours as well." As the driver opened my door and the cool night air rushed in, I held Mia tighter, wondering what fresh hell I had just walked into, and if we would ever find our way out. The inside of Dante Moretti's mansion was both exactly what I'd expected and nothing like I could have imagined. There were soaring ceilings, floors of polished marble, and massive pieces of art that probably cost more than I would earn in a lifetime. All the obvious trappings of immense wealth were present, but there was also a surprising warmth, an understated elegance that seemed at odds with the man himself. It was a space of quiet, confident power, not gaudy excess. A woman in her 60s, with sharp, intelligent eyes and silver-streaked dark hair pulled into a severe bun, met us in the grand foyer. Her posture was impeccable, her simple black dress clearly expensive. "Dante," she said, her slight Italian accent lending his name a familiar warmth. Her gaze shifted to me, then to the sleeping child in my arms. "I have prepared the West Suite, as you instructed." "Thank you, Isabella," Dante said, placing a hand briefly on her shoulder. "This is Clara and her daughter Mia. They will be our guests for a time." Isabella's expression remained neutral, but I couldn't help but wonder how often Dante brought home hostages in the middle of the night. "The child is unwell?" she asked, her sharp eyes noting Mia's flushed cheeks. "She's getting over a fever," I supplied, shifting Mia's weight. She was getting heavy, but I was reluctant to put her down in this strange, intimidating place. "Dr. Albanelli will be here in the morning to see her," Dante told me. "Until then, Isabella will show you to your rooms." "Come," Isabella said, already turning toward a magnificent curving staircase. "The little one needs a proper bed." I hesitated, looking back at Dante. "And then what? We just sit here while you hunt for Leo?" "We will discuss the next steps in the morning," he said, his tone making it clear the conversation was over. "Try to get some rest, Clara. You are safe here." Safe. The word felt like a lie. I was trapped between a ruthless crime boss and whatever other monsters were hunting for the information Leo had stolen. But my arms ached, and a bone-deep exhaustion was setting in. Whatever came next would have to wait. I followed Isabella up the stairs and down a long hall lined with more original artwork, into a suite of rooms larger than my entire apartment. A beautifully furnished sitting room led to a master bedroom with a king-sized bed swathed in what looked like the finest linens. Through another door, I saw a second, smaller bedroom. "For the bambina," Isabella explained, seeing my glance, "though perhaps tonight she will wish to stay with you." "Yes," I agreed, gently laying Mia on the enormous bed. She stirred but didn't wake, curling around Barnaby with a soft sigh. Isabella vanished into a cavernous bathroom and returned with a cool washcloth. "For her forehead," she said, handing it to me. "There are clean pajamas in the dresser. They will be too large, but they will do for tonight. Tomorrow we will arrange for proper clothes." I pressed the cool cloth to Mia's forehead, wondering how many of Dante's guests this woman had cared for. "Thank you." Isabella gave a curt nod, her shrewd eyes seeming to take my full measure. "There is food in the small kitchen if you are hungry. Breakfast is at 8, but we can prepare something for the child earlier if she wakes." "This is all very civilized for a kidnapping," I said, unable to keep the bitter edge from my voice. Isabella's expression didn't flicker. Mr. Moretti does not kidnap women and children. Whatever has brought you to this house, you are a guest. Rest now. The morning will be here soon enough. After she left, I explored our gilded prison. The suite was the definition of luxury, from the Egyptian cotton sheets to the ridiculously expensive toiletries in the bathroom. The large windows overlooked the manicured grounds, illuminated by soft landscape lighting. And beyond the gardens, I could see the high wall, topped with what I was sure was a sophisticated security system. There would be no escape. I changed Mia into a pair of silk pajamas that were comically large on her, then found a plain t-shirt for myself in the dresser. My own clothes felt tainted by the stress and fear of the night. I curled up on the massive bed beside Mia, listening to the soft, even rhythm of her breathing, trying to fight back the panic that was rising now that we were alone. What would happen when Dante found Leo? What would he do to him? And what would happen to us after? I couldn't believe he would simply let us walk away, not after we had seen his home, his face, not when we knew what Leo had stolen. Men like Dante Moretti didn't leave loose ends. Sleep came in short, jagged bursts, filled with nightmares of dark cars and men with cold, empty eyes. When the morning light finally streamed through the curtains, I felt more exhausted than when I had lain down. Mia, however, woke up in much better spirits. Her fever was gone, replaced by a boundless curiosity. She explored our suite with wide-eyed wonder, marveling at the velvet curtains and bouncing on the plush sofa. "Is this a fancy hotel, Mommy?" she asked, peeking into the marble bathroom with its sunken tub. "Sort of," I hedged, unsure how to explain our situation to a 4-year-old. "It's Mr. Dante's house. We're staying here for a little while." "It's pretty," she declared. Then her face fell. "But I didn't bring my rocket ship light." "I'm sure we can find something," I promised, relieved that this was her biggest worry. A knock came at the door just as we finished dressing. I tensed before calling out, "Come in." It was Isabella carrying a tray laden with fresh fruit, pastries, and a small silver pot that smelled of rich, hot chocolate. "For the little one," she said. "Mr. Moretti thought she might prefer to eat here while you speak with the doctor." My defenses went up instantly. "I'm not leaving Mia alone with strangers." Isabella set the tray on a small table. "The doctor is here for her, not you. And I will remain with her while you speak with Mr. Moretti. He is waiting for you in his study." "I'm not going anywhere without my daughter," I insisted. Isabella's stern expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Clara, if Mr. Moretti wished to separate you from your child, he would not require my assistance. He respects that you are a mother protecting her cub. But he has matters to discuss that are not for a child's ears." I looked at Mia, who was already eyeing a chocolate croissant with laser focus. "Who is the doctor?" "Dr. Albanelli is Mr. Moretti's personal physician. He is very good with children." As if on cue, there was another knock, and a man entered at Isabella's call. He was middle-aged with kind eyes and a gentle smile that immediately put me somewhat at ease. "You must be Clara," he said, his voice warm. "And this must be Mia. I'm Dr. Albanelli. I hear you've been feeling under the weather, young lady." Mia nodded, already warming to his grandfatherly presence. "My throat is scratchy." "Well, let's have a look, shall we?" he said, then glanced at me. "With your permission?" I hesitated, torn. Isabella seemed to read my mind. "Mr. Moretti was quite insistent," she said quietly. "It is about your ex-husband." My stomach plunged. Had they found him already? 15 minutes, I told her. Then I'm coming back. Dr. Albanelli was already engaging Mia in a conversation about Barnaby the bear, his manner practiced and soothing. I kissed the top of her head. "I'll be right back, sweetie. The doctor is just going to check your throat, and Isabella will stay with you." "Can I have hot chocolate?" she asked, her attention already diverted. "Of course," I said, managing a weak smile. "Be a good girl." I followed Isabella's directions down the hall, trying to memorize the layout of the house, a grimly practical habit I'd picked up from crime dramas. The study was on the main floor, a deeply masculine room of dark wood, leather furniture, and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. Dante stood by a window, speaking rapidly in Italian on his phone. He was dressed more casually today in dark jeans and a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my car, but he was no less intimidating. He ended the call as I entered. "Clara, I trust you slept." "As well as can be expected when you've been abducted," I replied, crossing my arms. "Isabella said you have news about Leo." "Please, sit." He gestured to one of the leather armchairs in front of his massive desk. I remained standing. "I have 15 minutes. Whatever you need to say it." A flicker of what looked like respect crossed his face. "Very well. My men located Leo's apartment this morning." My heart skipped a beat. And? He was not there, but it was clear he had left recently and in a great hurry. Dante moved behind his desk and opened a file. "We found these." He slid a handful of photographs across the polished wood. I stepped forward and looked down at pictures of Mia. Mia at the park. Mia outside her preschool. Mia playing in the small, sad patch of grass behind our apartment building. Some of the photos included me, but in most, she was alone. "What is this?" I whispered, a cold dread seeping into my veins. "Leo has been watching you," Dante said, his voice tight with a controlled fury. "Or he hired someone to. These were on a wall in his apartment, along with these." He added more photos to the pile. These were of men I didn't recognize, all stern-faced and expensively dressed. One was deep in conversation with several large men who were clearly bodyguards. "Dmitry Volkov and Ivan Chernov," Dante said, identifying them. "Senior members of the Russian organization I mentioned, the same people who are very eager to get their hands on what Leo stole." I sank into the chair, my legs giving out. "I don't understand. Why would Leo have pictures of Mia? And of these men?" "Because he is planning something," Dante said, perching on the edge of his desk, closer than I was comfortable with. "Something that involves using his own daughter as a bargaining chip. Or perhaps a shield." "That's crazy. Leo is a selfish coward, but he would never put Mia in danger." "Would he?" Dante's gaze was sharp, unforgiving. "Is this the same man who abandoned his sick child? The man who refuses to support her? The man who entangled your name with some of the most dangerous men in this city?" Put that way, it was impossible to defend him. Still, this felt like a level of depravity I hadn't thought Leo capable of. "There is more," Dante continued. He handed me a small pink backpack with a faded unicorn on it. It was Mia's old one, the one she'd loved 2 years ago. I opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was her passport, which I thought was in a drawer at home, a change of clothes, her favorite picture book, and an envelope thick with cash. He was going to take her, I breathed, the horrific reality crashing down on me. He was planning to kidnap our daughter. It would appear so. Dante's voice had softened. "I believe Leo's plan was to use what he stole from me to negotiate safe passage out of the country, and he intended to take Mia with him, either out of some twisted sense of fatherly love, or because he knew that having his daughter with him would make it more difficult for me to eliminate him." Hot tears burned behind my eyes. All this time I'd been fighting to get Leo to be a father to Mia, and he had been stalking us, plotting to steal her away. The betrayal was a physical pain, sharper and deeper than I could have imagined. "How do I know you didn't just plant all this?" I demanded, a last desperate attempt to deny the truth. "To what end?" Dante asked reasonably. "I could have forced your cooperation last night without such elaborate theater." He was right, which made the truth all the more devastating. I pressed my hands to my face, trying to breathe, trying to control the storm of emotions. "What happens now?" I finally asked, my voice surprisingly steady. Now, we proceed with the original plan, with a few modifications, Dante said, returning to his chair. You will contact Leo. You will tell him you know about his plan, that you found Mia's passport missing. You will tell him that if he ever wants to see his daughter again, he needs to meet you. And you'll be there to grab him. I finished for him. Yes. But there is a new complication. Dante steepled his fingers. If Leo was monitoring your apartment, he likely knows you are gone. And if he is desperate, he may already have made contact with Volkov or Chernov. You think he'd sell your information to the Russians? I think a man who would use his 4-year-old daughter as a human shield is capable of anything, Dante said, his expression grim. Which is why we must act quickly. I thought of Mia upstairs, safe for the moment, blissfully unaware. I want guarantees, I said, a sudden clarity cutting through my fear. If I do this, if I help you get Leo, I want your word that Mia and I walk away. New identities. Enough money to start over somewhere he and you can never find us. Dante studied me, a new kind of interest in his eyes. You are negotiating with me. I'm a mother protecting her cub, I countered, throwing his housekeeper's words back at him. Isn't that what you said you respected? A smile touched the corner of his mouth. Indeed. He thought for a moment, then nodded. Help me recover what was stolen, and I will ensure you and Mia disappear so completely that no one will ever find you. I want that in writing. This time he did smile, a genuine, startlingly attractive expression. A contract with a criminal, Clara? I'm not sure that would be legally binding. Maybe not, but it would be an act of good faith. Very well. He pulled a sheet of heavy stationery from a drawer, wrote a few lines in a strong, elegant hand, and signed it with a flourish before sliding it across the desk. Satisfied? I read the document. It was a simple promise of new identities and financial support in exchange for my assistance. It was probably legally worthless, but something told me Dante Moretti was a man who honored his signature. I'll need a phone, I said, folding the paper and putting it in my pocket. Use mine, he said, offering his own sleek smartphone. It cannot be traced to you. I took it, my fingers brushing his. An unexpected spark, a jolt of something that wasn't fear, ran up my arm. I dialed Leo's number from memory, half expecting it to go to voicemail. He answered on the second ring. Who is this? His voice was tight with suspicion. It's me, I said, my eyes locked on Dante's face. We need to talk, Leo, right now. There was a long, charged silence. For a second I thought he'd hung up. Clara. His voice was a choked whisper. Where are you? This isn't your number. I'm on a borrowed phone, I said, fighting to keep my voice even. Mine's not working. Are you okay? Is Mia okay? Don't. I cut him off, my voice hardening into steel. Don't you dare pretend to care about her now. I found her passport missing, Leo. And I found that little pink unicorn backpack you insisted on keeping. I know what you were planning. Another heavy silence. Beside me, Dante was perfectly still, but I could feel the coiled energy radiating from him as he listened. It's not what you think, Leo finally said, his voice taking on that familiar whining tone he used when he was caught in a lie. I was just getting things ready, in case what? In case you needed to kidnap our daughter and run? My hand was gripping the phone so hard my knuckles were white. Or were you planning to use her as a shield against the people you robbed? Leo's sharp intake of breath told me I'd hit the mark. Who have you been talking to? That doesn't matter. What matters is that I know. And I know you were watching us. The pictures in your apartment, I improvised, following a slight nod from Dante. Did you take those yourself? Or did you hire someone to stalk your own child? Clara, listen to me. Leo's voice dropped, urgent and low. You don't understand. These people are dangerous. Which people, Leo? The Morettis? Or the Russians you're trying to sell out to? I met Dante's gaze as I said his name, and saw his eyes narrow. How did you— Leo cut himself off. Where are you? Tell me where you and Mia are right now. Somewhere safe, I replied, the irony thick in my throat. Safer than we were with you spying on us. You have no idea who you're dealing with, Leo hissed. I know exactly who I'm dealing with, I interrupted. All of them. And right now, you're the one I trust the least. Dante held out his hand, gesturing for the phone, but I shook my head. This was my fight. I want to see Mia, Leo said suddenly. I need to know she's okay. Why? So you can finish what you started? Steal her from me? My voice cracked. No, Clara, please. It's complicated. I screwed up. But everything I did was to protect you both. The desperation in his voice was almost believable. Almost. Prove it, I challenged. Meet me. Bring what you took, and we can figure this out. Dante nodded, his eyes approving. I can't, Leo said. It's too risky. They're watching me. They're probably watching you. Fine. Then I'm going to the police. I'll tell them everything. About the pictures, the passport, your new business associates. It was a huge risk. I'm sure they'd be very interested to see what's on that flash drive. You don't have it, he said quickly. You're bluffing. Am I? You left copies all over your apartment, Leo, not your smartest move. Another lie, but his ragged breathing told me it had landed. Don't go to the police, he pleaded. You'll start a war. Then meet me. Tonight. I glanced at Dante, who mouthed an address to me. There's a coffee shop on Wacker Drive, the Riverwalk Grind, 8 o'clock. That's too public? Exactly, I said. I'm not an idiot, Leo. Public place, or the deal is off. I could practically hear the gears turning in his head as he weighed his options, trying to sniff out the trap. Fine, he finally agreed. 8 o'clock, but you come alone. No Mia. Of course not, I said, the bitterness rising in my throat. Unlike you, I don't use our daughter as a pawn. Clara, He started to say something else, then stopped. I'll see you tonight. The line went dead. I handed the phone back to Dante, a wave of exhaustion washing over me. Well done, he said, his voice low. Very convincing. It wasn't an act, I replied, getting to my feet. Every word of it was real. Dante stood as well, moving around the desk to stand in front of me. You realize he will not come alone. He will have lookouts, possibly even Volkov's men, if he has already made a deal. I figured. I lifted my chin, which is why I'm not going either. His eyebrows rose. That was not our agreement. Our agreement was that I would help you find Leo and get back what he stole. I have just arranged the meeting for you to do exactly that. I crossed my arms. I am not walking into the middle of a mob shootout. For a long moment, I thought he was going to argue, to force me. Instead, he inclined his head. Fair enough. My men will handle it. He studied me with that new, appraising look. You are far more intelligent than Leo gave you credit for. Most men underestimate me, I said. A lifetime of being dismissed by men like Leo hardening my voice. I will not make that same mistake, Dante said, and the intensity in his voice sent an unexpected shiver through me. Now, shall we check on your daughter? Dr. Albanelli should be finished. We found Mia sitting on the bed, watching cartoons on a tablet I'd never seen before, an empty hot chocolate cup beside her. Dr. Albanelli was packing his bag while Isabella cleared the breakfast tray. Mommy! Mia's face lit up. Dr. Albanelli gave me strawberry medicine and Isabella said I can have pancakes for lunch. That's wonderful, sweetie. I sat beside her, automatically feeling her forehead. It was cool. A mild throat infection, Dr. Albanelli told me. The antibiotic will clear it up quickly. Isabella has the prescription and the instructions. He smiled at Mia. She was a very brave little patient. Thank you, I said, and the gratitude was genuine. Whatever else Dante Moretti was, he had kept his word about taking care of Mia. After the doctor left, Dante spoke quietly with Isabella in Italian. She nodded and left, leaving the three of us alone. Mia, Dante said, his voice softer than I'd heard it yet. Would you like to see the garden? There are fish in the fountain. Mia's eyes went wide. Real fish? Can I feed them? Of course. He looked to me for permission. Part of me wanted to say no, to keep Mia away from him. But the rational part of my brain knew that if he'd meant her harm, he'd had plenty of opportunity. And after the morning's revelations, I was starting to think Dante was the least of our problems. Okay, I conceded, but I'm coming too. The gardens were even more spectacular in the daylight, a sprawling expanse of perfect lawns and artfully arranged flower beds. Mia ran ahead to a large stone fountain where bright orange and white koi swam in the clear water. Isabella appeared with a small cup of fish food, showing Mia how to sprinkle it on the surface. Her delighted giggles as the fish swarmed to the food eased a knot of tension in my chest I hadn't even realized was there. For this one moment, she was just a happy, safe little girl. She is resilient, Dante observed, coming to stand beside me. Like her mother. I glanced at him, trying to reconcile the monster who had terrified me last night with the man who had arranged for a doctor for my daughter, who had provided us with a sanctuary when I hadn't even known we were in danger. What happens after tonight? I asked quietly. Assuming you get what you want. I honor our agreement, he said, his eyes still on Mia. New identities, a new life, a fresh start somewhere Leo can never find you. And what happens to Leo? Dante's expression hardened. That will depend entirely on him. If he cooperates, if he returns everything, he may live. And if he doesn't? His silence was all the answer I needed. I should have been horrified. I should have pleaded for the father of my child. But all I could see were the photos, the packed backpack, the evidence of his plan to use our daughter as a shield. I don't want to know, I said finally. Whatever happens to him, I don't want the details. Dante gave a single sharp nod, accepting my silent consent. The rest of the day passed in a strange, surreal limbo. Mia, blissfully unaware, reveled in the luxury of Dante's home. I watched her, a painful guilt twisting in my gut for the life of struggle I'd given her compared to all this. As evening fell, Dante disappeared to prepare for the meeting. I put Mia to bed early. She was exhausted from her illness and the day's excitement. I was sitting in the suite's living room, staring blankly at a book, when Dante returned. He was back in a dark suit, the casual man from the afternoon replaced by the formidable crime boss. It is time, he said. I put the book down. Be careful. Leo is a cornered rat. He's unpredictable. I have dealt with men far more dangerous than Leo Vance, he said. He paused at the door. But I appreciate the concern. I wasn't sure why I'd said it. Maybe it was just the realization that his survival was now directly tied to ours. Will you let me know when it's over? Of course. He stopped, his hand on the doorknob. Lock this door behind me. Do not open it for anyone but Isabella or myself. Do you understand? I nodded, a fresh wave of fear washing over me. The reality of what was about to happen, a violent confrontation on the Chicago Riverwalk, crashed down. Dante! I called out. He turned. Thank you for keeping Mia safe. Whatever else happens, thank you for that. Something shifted in his gaze, a subtle softening. He inclined his head once, then he was gone. I locked the door and went to sit by Mia's bed. Hours crawled by. I must have dozed off because I jerked awake when a soft knock came at the suite door. It was well after midnight. My heart pounded as I crept to the door and looked through the peephole. It was Dante. He stood in the hallway, his suit jacket gone, his tie loosened. There was a dark stain on the sleeve of his white shirt that I chose not to look at too closely. "It is done," he said, his voice heavy with fatigue. "Leo?" I whispered, afraid of the answer. "He is alive. For now." His face was an unreadable mask. He has been convinced to cooperate fully. A wave of relief washed over me, complex and unwelcome. He was still Mia's father. "The drive has been recovered, along with all copies," Dante continued. "You and Mia are safe, from him, from Volkov, from all of it." "So what now?" I asked. "Now," Dante said, his piercing blue eyes holding mine. "We honor our agreement. The arrangements for your new identities are already underway. By this time tomorrow, Clara and Mia Rossi will cease to exist." I nodded, accepting it. "And then, we're gone." "That would be the safest course," he agreed. He hesitated. "Unless you would consider an alternative." "What alternative?" "Stay," he said. The single word hung in the air between us, heavy with unspoken meaning. "Not as a guest, not as a prisoner, as something else." I stared at him, my mind racing. "Why?" "Because in the last 24 hours, you have shown more courage and loyalty than most people I have known in my entire life," he said, taking a step closer. He didn't touch me, but his proximity was a physical force. "Because I protect what is mine, Clara, and I find I am very reluctant to let you go." The raw possessiveness in his voice should have sent me running. Instead, it stirred something within me I'd thought long dead, a feeling of being seen, of being valued. "I can't answer that right now," I said honestly. "It's too much. I need to think." "Of course." He stepped back, the professional mask sliding back into place. "The offer stands. Consider it." He turned to leave. "Get some rest. Tomorrow is a new beginning. Whichever one you choose." After he left, I went back to Mia's bedside and watched the steady rise and fall of her small chest. A new beginning. A life free from Leo, from poverty, from the constant gnawing fear that had become my normal. But what was the cost? Choosing to stay with Dante Moretti meant choosing a world of violence and danger, a world of shadows and moral compromise. Could I make that choice, even for the security it offered? For the protection I saw in those piercing blue eyes? Mia smiled in her sleep, dreaming of fish or pancakes or some other simple childhood joy. Whatever I decided, it would be for her. To give her the safety she deserved. To ensure she would never be a pawn in anyone's game again. As the first light of dawn broke over Lake Michigan, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold, I made my decision. I would stay. I would walk into his world not as a victim, but on my own terms, with my eyes wide open. One mistaken text had turned my life upside down, brought a monster to my door, and surrounded my home with darkness. But in that darkness, I had found a strange and unexpected sanctuary. And maybe, in time, I could find something more. I sent a silent, strange prayer of thanks for that single, fateful error, for the wrong number that had, against all odds, led me right where I needed to be.